welcome to the Wednesday night Grumpy Sound Guy show. I am your host, the Grumpster himself, Mr. J.R. Everhart. Today, we just want to take a few minutes. We got the outdoor concert season slowly approaching and coming at us full force. We've been here in our shop and in our company, we have been booking this summer like absolutely crazy right now. So, I think it's a good time to have a conversation about some things that relate to, summer outdoor events. And really even all this stuff can be kind of translated into indoor events as well. But I run into this most of the time when I'm out with the big rig doing, a food truck festival or, something like that or whatever. And what we want to talk about is volume. And volume is always a hot button issue for a whole lot of people for a whole lot of different reasons, Some people like it melting your face and peeling your skin back off your skull at like 200 feet out. But in today's world, what I have discovered and really is what is happening inside the industry is we're trying to be more and more responsible, for how the audience's experience is. And a lot of that has to do with volume. I've even noticed that some of the big pro touring shows that I have been part of, they're not mixing near as loud as they used to. I can remember back in the day when you would see riders that would say, if you can't be 115, 20 dB at front of house, then you weren't getting paid. In front of house was usually, somewhere between 80 and 110 feet out. So that's kind of, what that was back then. Of course, then, everybody's deaf now because of that, myself included. There's no greater torture than having to sit in front of a 120 dB rig at front of house for hours and hours, especially if it's a cattle call gig where, you got 5 or 6 nationals that you're dealing with and that sort of thing. But even down into the middle market, which is what we talk about most on this channel and what my content is focused toward, I get compliments regularly at outdoor shows because my system's not too loud. And that might sound crazy, but the reality of it is this, guys. It comes down to 2 things. One, the audience experience, which we just talked about because we're trying to be more responsible with how we treat the audience. And then the other thing is budget. In the middle market, budgets are tight, man. They really are. They're tight. No one's making a whole bunch of money, in this business. We're all just making enough money to kind of make it worth our while to stick around and to continue to do this for another year. So that means we usually, bring gear to the table that is reflected of that budget. So if it's a super tight budget, most of the time, specifically at like beer festivals, food truck festivals, county fairs, all that upper middle market, your city park, your community concert series in your neighborhood, stuff like that. We're really only mixing for like the first 75 or 100 feet out. If that, a lot of times it's 60 or 70 feet out, depending on how, the venue is designed or the field that we're in is designed. And then the way we look at it is that anyone beyond that, has the ability to get away from the volume and has the ability to get into a scenario with their friends, especially if it's like at a food truck festival or a beer festival, where they just kind of want to sit around on their lawn chairs and visit with friends and family that they don't get to see all the time. When you get outside of that 75, 80 foot from the stage area, now the volume starts to decrease and it gives you more and more comfort in sitting and talking with your friends, and you're still enjoying the band because it's not like you can't hear the band. It's just a matter of, if you want that in your face experience, get up 20 feet from the stage and it's going to be in your face, trust me. But if you don't want to be have the skin peeled off your forehead, then, get back at 100 feet or off to one side or the other, because we're just shooting right down the power alley. of our audience, and really just trying to create an experience that everyone can enjoy. I have been at many, many, many outdoor festivals where it was so friggin' loud that it was hurting my ears. And I do this for a living. If it's hurting my ears, it's got to be hurting everybody else's ears. And I was behind front of house by probably 15, 20 feet, and it was still killing me. A lot of these new line array rigs and that sort of thing are designed to throw for days, and that's all fine and good, man, if you're trying to cover 15,000 people or something like that, or 10,000 people, a city block, down the street or whatever. But that's not how most of this middle market stuff is designed. Most of this middle market stuff is somewhere between 3,000 and 8,000 people. And that's not 3,000 people in front of the stage. That's typically, on the grounds of the event where there's other things going on. There's vendors set up and people are going, especially at the beer festivals where you have a whole bunch of craft beer tents set up. People are going from tent to tent to tent. So you may have an audience of 8,000 or 9,000 people, but only have, 500 or 600 people actually in front of the stage at any one time throughout the day. A lot of these events are day gigs, so they start at 11 or 12 o'clock and they're done by 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, so it's a different environment than what it is when you go see Disturbed, or when you're going to go see your favorite rock band, Aerosmith or Kiss or something like that. It's a completely different thing altogether. And I think some people kill themselves in this middle market production, industry, trying to be, the Aerosmith thing, trying to be someone who's going to throw for days with their rig, Hey man, that's cool. If you want to kind of show off what you got and that sort of thing, I get it. I'm a gear geek too. And, I like to, put my stuff out there as much as the next guy. But at the end of the day, what keeps my phone ringing is creating an experience for the audience and for the buyer, the promoter, the organizers of the event, to where they walk away and people are talking about how much fun they had. They enjoyed the band. The band feels like they're getting a good mix. They're feeling like they're getting good coverage. And the audience walks away saying, you know what, that wasn't so loud that I couldn't enjoy my conversation with my brother that I only see 3 times a year because we both work like crazy. So there's something to be said for that, and even when you take this conversation indoors, it's the same thing, just on a smaller level, instead of, double stacking every gig. And a lot of these clubs just don't need a double stack rig. Yeah, it's fine to have, a bunch of stuff stacked up like it's 1985 and you got a whole boatload of gear. It looks like you got half a Guitar Center's, pro audio section, on each side of the stage. But, man, my clients look at me and they see what in those club level gigs, I'm bringing passive speakers on sticks and 1 pair of passive double 18 subs, and we will literally knock the guts out of you with that rig, and still have a ton of headroom. Because here's the other side of this whole conversation that we can have, is if you design your system to be 30 to 35% more than what you're ever going to need, then you never have to run your system full bore. You know what I mean? Then you can run your system at that comfortable 96 to 100 dB level and not be running your system into the ground, not be beating it to death trying to get throw or trying to get, anything like that, to happen. A lot of times, man, it's just about working smarter, not harder. I can't say that enough. And guys just kind of, especially these weekend warrior guys that have big time IT jobs during the day, and this is kind of their hobby. So, they just want to go buy a whole bunch of gear. I mean, I know guys that are toting around $40,000 in consoles and they're doing the local Moose Club. I know guys that just seen a post here a week or so ago of a guy that just bought probably 10 grand, 15 grand maybe or more of front of house stuff that he probably didn't need, to do little 150 seat dock bars. maybe 300 seat dock bars. Now, I'm not mad at the guy. I'm not mad at anybody. This is your hobby. This is what you want to do for a living, or, at least on the side, to have some fun and that sort of thing. And you got the expendable income. Hey, man, more power to you. I'm not hating on you. But for those of us who do this full time, and those of us that take this very, very seriously and take our clients' needs very, very seriously, man, we're trying to use gear that the budgets dictate, not what our ego dictates. Like I said, there's the band, and the promoter is the one that wins in that game, where you got guys that are just kind of out there wagging their wallet around with, crazy high dollar pro touring level gear at the local Moose Lodge or the Eagles or the Elks, or, down at the VFW grounds, or, something like that. I mean, maybe they're doing a summer concert series in the park. They could have probably got away with a JBL rig, and they're taking out an L Acoustics rig and that sort of thing. Hey, man, whatever. To each is his own, I mean, that's all fine and good. I'm not hating on you. But you're obviously not focused on ROI, return on investment, because you're going to have to do a whole lot of years worth of those events to even begin to pay for the money that you have put into gear. And for those of us that are full time, we don't, that's not how we roll, man. We are trying to put gear in place that is equivalent to the budgets that our clients are bringing to the table. And we're not shortchanging anybody. We're giving everybody exactly what they're paying for. We're giving everybody, exactly what they feel like is going to be best for their event at a competitive price. And everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation. And, as a production company, I get to, feel better about the numbers at the end of the month when I'm crunching the numbers and I'm trying to make sure that, we're actually moving forward in terms of making a profit. So all that stuff factors into, how I mix a gig, how I bring gear to a gig, I mean, if a client wants to come to the table and they're saying money's no object and they want to shoot 3 blocks down the street, hey, man, no problem. I can make a phone call right now and put that system in place and, meet all your expectations. What you're going to find out, though, is it's going to be crazy overkill for what your audience expects out of the event. When really we probably could have spent a third of that and made your audience just as happy and accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, in that situation, without, breaking the bank. And volume does not have to be, 120 dB. If I'm floating around 98 to 101, 102 right at front of house, I'm usually at least 75, 80 feet out. Dude, I'm happy. I'm not dogging my system to death, trying to throw down the block. I'm creating an environment in front of the stage that feels like live audio. You feel my mix. The kick drum is punching you in the chest. You're being captivated by the amount of sound pressure you feel when you're close to the stage. But then again, like I said, if you're out there sitting around a picnic table with some cheese and crackers while you're drinking your wine at the local wine festival, you're also very appreciative of the fact that the band isn't so loud that you can't enjoy that experience as well. So I think this is something to be said for that. It's about balance. It's about taking the right gear to the gig, and budget always dictates that. I'm getting ready to start a summer concert series, and I got the gig because I wasn't afraid to bring the right gear to the event. In this case, 17 events, so the guy that did it last year kind of, shortchanged, the client to some degree, or at least that's how the client expressed it to me. I wasn't there to see exactly how it played out. I've seen pictures of what he brought to the gig. I initially bid the gig from the pictures they sent me. And when we met face to face, come to find out, that wasn't their expectations. They didn't feel like that system was bringing enough sound pressure to the gig. They didn't feel like that it was, conveying the experience that they want to convey. And I said, oh, okay, great. Well, I was just kind of going by what you were giving me. So here's what I would do if this was my event. And I told them, what my vision was, and it really lined up with exactly where they were. We adjusted the budget accordingly to where it made some sense for everybody, and bam, we made it happen. I'm prepping for that gig right now. I just came back from, picking up some gear that I'm going to need for that gig, some specific infrastructural things I'm going to need for that gig. That's where it's at. I mean, the client is trusting you, to know these things as a production company expert. If you're marketing yourself as someone who is an expert in this field, and you have any level of authority and influence with the client, then you really got to knock that out of the park, and you got to really give the client what they want. And you know what? Here's the reality of this. Like, if we do the first show in that event and the client comes to me and says, hey man, I think we could do a little more. Hey, no problem. Let's talk about a little more. I want to make this what you want it to be. And I have a whole warehouse full of gear to do it with. It's just a matter of budget, and it's a matter of, what you want your audience experience to be. I think we got things pretty dialed in. It's going to be significantly better than what he had last year. And, I think it's going to be a good summer at that series of events. I'm really looking forward to it. But again, I'm going into that deal not trying to kill people with volume. This is an outdoor gig that sort of kind of has some overhangs around where the stage is that people will be, taking shelter in from the sun and stuff like that. So I need to be able to spread out a little bit that way. But at the same time, we're not trying to kill anyone with volume, so we're going to go in, we're going to try to play it safe. We're going to try to give the client everything that we feel like they need. And, I'm going to evaluate it myself. It's my first time working with this client. The first show we have, I'm going to be able to evaluate how big of a crowd is in front of the stage, what my coverage looks like. And if I need to give this guy a little more bang for his buck, I'm not going to hesitate to do it. I'm just not. I mean, it's just how you got to do business. That's what keeps the phone ringing, is being sensitive to the audience's expectations and to that audience experience. Because if the audience is having a good, positive experience, then they're going to go convey that to the powers to be, the people who write the check. And those are the people that are going to keep calling you back year after year after year after year. And that is a reputation we have here at CLP Audio and Staging. And we hope to continue that reputation. And it's always a pleasure to work with clients that get that, and work with clients that are willing to sit down at the table of negotiation and hash this out, instead of just kind of hop on the next recommended production company coming down the pike. I can't tell you how many of these guys that I've done for a year or two, and then someone comes along and says, hey, I can do the same thing for half the price. They go with that guy for a year, and then it never fails. They're coming back to the table the following year saying, JR, man, we're sorry, this didn't quite work out. This guy was full of a bunch of promises, but he couldn't deliver the way you did. Is there any way we can get you back? And of course, it's just business. It's never personal. So I never hold that stuff against anyone. And it's about, okay, well, let's sit down at the table. Let's talk about budget, and let's talk about what you want to do. You want to do what we were doing before? Great. If your event is growing and we need to do a little bit more, hey, let's talk about that. And this is why I don't put flat rate prices on my website. I got people who ask me that all the time. JR, I just want to know what your services are to do a club gig. Well, I want to cater what we do for you and for your audience per gig, and every club is different. Every club requires something a little bit different. Load in, distance, location, all that kind of stuff. Is it indoor? Is it outdoor? All that stuff means a lot in trying to price something, because we're not doing this as a hobby. This isn't a weekend warrior thing for guys like me. This is what we do for a living. And if we can't turn a measurable profit, and believe me, I've had to learn this lesson the hard way, I'm saving money by just sitting at home and letting one of my competitors do it. Because I know one thing about this business: if I can't make money at it at that price, neither can they. And the best way to deal with your competition is to let them go lose money on events like that, because that will eventually spell their doom. Now, they may have a high-paying gig someplace else that they can kind of balance out the numbers with or whatever, but at some point, they're going to wake up and look at that and say, why am I doing this? We're not making any money here. That's the reality of the middle market, ladies and gentlemen. That's just what it is. Everybody is trying to make a living. Everybody's trying to scratch out their place in the market, and it's not always a warm and fuzzy experience. Let me just put it that way, you know. But if you can stay focused on that audience experience and give the audience that great experience and create an environment that they're comfortable with, you're going to find that your phone is going to ring more and more all the time. At least that's how it's worked for our company. So thanks, guys. Please subscribe to this channel. Please hit that notification bell. Please share this video with people that you know can benefit from this kind of content. If you support this content, leave me a comment, you know. Go down there in the comments section and, you know, twiddle-daddle, you know, your little opinion or your viewpoint, or maybe you have something you'd like to share about this subject of volume, you know, at shows, and, you know, anything that we talked about today. I absolutely love talking with you guys, and I honestly try to at least acknowledge or interact with everyone that comments on the videos. So love you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.